We have the candidates for the Justice of the Peace office, which is going to be vacant. Edie Connolly, who has held that position for many years, is retiring. So one of these three gentlemen will be our new Justice of the Peace. So they will each have a 2-minute opening statement, and then, as always, we will go to you, the audience, pull the names from the bucket. If you forgot to sign in one of the little slips of paper to be able to ask a question, give them to one of the people in the back. They'll bring them up and put them in the bucket so that everybody does get a chance to ask their question. And then we'll have a 2-minute closing statement from each of the candidates. And we will start off with Mr. Zientek.
Okay. Thanks, sir. I'm Dan Zientek, and I've been a public servant for 29 years. I graduated from Magnolia High School and started as a paramedic before I was old enough to be a cop, and then I did both. I worked as a paramedic 48 hours a week. I worked as a cop 40 hours a week, and I did that for 12 years straight. I focused on my law enforcement career. I did 14 years in Harris County before moving up to Montgomery County, in which I promoted through detective, sergeant, lieutenant, not only working in patrol and DWI task force and patrol functions. I was a sergeant, lieutenant over homicide, major crimes, robbery, crimes against children, and served in that role until a year ago when Constable Ryan Gable asked me to be his captain, his administrative captain over his whole department, which is where I moved. And currently, I am over the investigation division, the civil division, and patrol division, and all the aspects of the constable's agency here in the Woodlands. So, beyond my law enforcement career, after receiving my training and such at Montgomery County and Harris County, I also teach for Texas A&M Forensic Science Academy. I teach death investigation, crime scene investigation to detectives and crime scene investigators throughout the state. I currently work with Law Enforcement Technologies with Spillman with the county and work for best practices, and currently I'm working on a project with Spillman and the JP offices to get e-citations over to the courts to make the courts more efficient already. So, thank you.
Beasley?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I want to thank the Eagle Forum. The whole purpose of the Eagle Forum is to educate, motivate, and activate voters. Over the last 5 weeks, every Thursday they've had candidates up here that are running for your local offices, and it's pretty amazing to see the voters come out and want to learn about the candidates. So I thank you for that. My name is Matt Beasley. I'm running for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3. Judge Connolly has been your JP for 32 years. She's done a good job, and I'm happy and honored to be a candidate in this race. I'll go over my qualifications, but first I want to talk to you about, I want to recognize my family, my wife, Kelly. When I'm gone campaigning, knocking on doors and doing everything a candidate does, she takes care of our 3 children, Brooks, Brett, and Brinley, who are not here. I have my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and I have my sister here to support me. I have a bachelor's degree from Tarleton State University in Criminal Justice Administration. I've served this community for over a decade as a law enforcement officer. I'm a Master Peace Officer certification. I'm a certified public manager for the state of Texas through the William P. Hobby School for Public Service through Texas State University, and I'm ready to work hard for you as your next JP. Thank you.
Mr. Yeates?
Thank y'all for having us out here. My name is Ronnie Yeates, and I moved here in 1978 with my family. I still live on the same street just up the road from where I grew up. My wife and I have been married almost 20 years. I've gone to the same church with my wife for almost 30 years. I graduated from high school and went to Sam Houston State University, where I got a degree, Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice, Law Enforcement, Police Administration. From there, I went on to law school, where I got a law degree. While I was there, I interned at the Harris County DA's office, where I prosecuted and represented the state of Texas and victims of crimes in justice court and also in district court. Currently, I'm an assistant district attorney. I'm the only lawyer running for this in the Republican primary. I represent the state of Texas and victims in all justice courts in Grimes County. I've been doing that for almost 16 years. I also represent the state of Texas in the county court at law. So in Grimes County, I represent every victim of every criminal misdemeanor case that comes through there. I also work in the 506th Judicial District handling felonies. So I review cases anywhere from speeding tickets all the way up to 25 to life felony cases. What does that do for you? Well, I've lived here since '78. I grew up in this community. I know this community. I just happen to work somewhere else. And what I do there is I help with the justice of the peace there. I help them coordinate their dockets. I help them organize their search warrants. And I also work with police, law enforcement, other officials, witnesses, and victims to help work the dockets, make them more smoothly and more efficiently. My wife and I, we're starting our 4th year teaching Financial Peace University, and so I believe in a zero-based budget, and I've done that for almost 5 years now. And so my goal as a Justice of the Peace is to make the dockets work more smoothly for victims, for law enforcement, and for citizens.
Thank you. Yes, now we get to the questions. The first one will be from Johnny Blake.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here.
Good evening.
My question is, what advantages and disadvantages does having a law degree pertain to being a justice of the peace? I know all three of y'all have worked in law enforcement in one way or the other, but what are the advantages and disadvantages of having a law degree when handling the office of justice of the peace?
Okay. Mr. Zientek got to start, so Mr. Beasley, if you'll start, and we'll go around that way.
That's a great question. The Justice of the Peace Court is one of the only courts that you do not have to be an attorney, and it was set up like that. The whole purpose is if you have someone who has common sense, integrity, and will provide a fair place for people to come and present their case, that's the whole point of the Justice Court. A lot of people go into the Justice Court with many different education levels. The last thing we need is for someone to walk up before an attorney as a JP and try to represent their case as a pro se. That's intimidating. That's why the law and the state set it up that way. So that I don't know of an advantage. Thank you.
Mr. Yeates?
Well, the advantage of being an attorney is I'm the only person here running for office that can actually do blood draw search warrants for evidentiary search warrants for DWI cases. I'm the only one here who's qualified to do that, and by statute, the only one who can do it. What I've done as an attorney is I've studied the law. I know the law. And starting day one, if y'all elected me, I could start day one working the docket. I've worked in JP court, county court, and district courts. I understand how dockets work. I understand how trial works. I understand evidence. I understand the civil aspects because I handle asset forfeitures, bond forfeitures, and I represent the DA's office on the bond board. So an advantage of being an attorney is I can start the court day one and I can run it more efficiently. I know how a court works. I've done it. That's what I've gone to school to do. And so people argue and discuss that being a lawyer isn't needed for JP. That's correct. It's not needed. But what does that bring you? What that brings you is experience. That brings you knowledge of the law. Having been a prosecutor and representing the state in JP court, the vast majority of my cases are dealing with pro se defendants. I've done that for almost 16 years in Grimes County. Just like county court at law or district court, every defendant comes into court, whether they're charged with murder or a speeding ticket, comes in pro se unless they hire their own attorney. And at that point, the court can give them one. The vast majority of cases pled out in your county courts at law here for your criminal cases, and any county court everywhere for criminal misdemeanor cases, probably 95% of those people are pro se defendants. So if they're concerned about going and facing a year in jail, a speeding ticket's not that big of a deal to them. But in JP court, it's the court of the people. And I grew up here, and I know how the court works. And I know how to deal with people.
Thank you. Mr. Zientek?
As Beasley had said, Matt Beasley referred to the fact that this court was created as a people's court. That's how it was intended in the beginning. That's how it has continued. And the reason behind that is because it was a place where citizens come in and speak to another person that was not a lawyer, to speak in common terms, to come to a conclusion. It's actually what I've done in 26 years in law enforcement. It's what we do every day by going to citizens that are in dispute and calming down a situation by talking the differences out so that they can come to a conclusion. In this place, it's coming to a court so that they can present a problem before someone that's another common citizen without a law degree to actually come to a basic conclusion so that they can move on with life. And I think that's how it was intended originally, and I believe that that's how it needs to stay.
Thank you. The next question will be from Mr. Yallock. Mr. Yeates, you will get to respond first.
Thank you.
In this election, there is a very significant fiscal issue that faces the Precinct 3 Justice of the Peace Court, and that is whether or not each of you will commit to not move to the Graves-Humphreys-Stall net data collection system. Would you please let us know what your position is on that?
Sure. As I've stated, my wife and I teach zero-based budget. We did the Dave Ramsey thing, and we're teaching that. This is our 4th year at our church. I believe in making every dollar go where you tell it to go, and we've done that. We don't believe in credit. We use debit cards, or we pay cash for it. And so, in working in the court system, I want to take my experience and come to the court and look and see what is the best software for the court. I'm not going to commit one way or the other what software I'm going to choose, because I don't know which one works best in that court. So I want to take my experience and my education in working with courts and budgeting there. And if you elect me, I will make sure the best choice is made dealing with which software is chosen and the best way to make your tax dollars work with whatever money comes into that court.
Mr. Zientek?
Actually, as far as the 2 systems that are being used, we have net data being used by the other JPs, and out of JP3 they use one that's called Tyler Odyssey. Actually, I'm only familiar with Tyler Odyssey. I use it on a daily basis. I know that that's what they use. It has many functions throughout the county, and so that's the one I'm familiar with. I know that that's the one that the clerks are familiar with. By all means, starting out in that court, that's the one that we'd be using because that's what they are trained on and what actually makes the court more efficient. I've sat down and I've spoke with the other JPs on their use of net data, and that's what works for them. One thing that I have a benefit of, again, I work with it every day, and one concern that I have is that usually about every day, or at least every week, we do get emails that the server's down or there's problems with Odyssey, and I'm not sure if that's only down for an update for 15 minutes or if it's down long enough that it's affecting the process of the court, and that's something to consider. I know that the other JPs have expressed that in their service with net data that they have been able to function without having many problems with it, but again, that's work for them. I don't see a need to change what's working for that court, what the clerks have already been trained in, and what is making that court efficient. So starting out, certainly I would stay with the current system that's there, and certainly one of my biggest concerns is make sure those 2 systems talk to one another so that the courts can see what each other are doing whenever they're transferring cases.
I'm going to use the software that the court uses now. That's what they're trained to use. That's what the county purchased. That's what other county departments use. I will say that software is not sitting on the bench hearing a case. If you're about to be evicted from your home, are you going to ask me what software I'm using? Well, I believe that the most important thing is that you have someone on the bench that is going to provide a fair and reasonable trial in a reasonable time, hear cases, and move the docket. The software system that Judge Connolly uses is the software system that I will use, and I believe in it, and that's really all I have to say about the software. Thank you.
Next question is from John Wirtz.
Guess that was that question.
That was an easy one. And Diana Gabolas. Again, no coaching was involved. That's my wife.
Hi, I'm Diana Gabolas. Nice to meet you all, and thanks for coming today. It's very nice to hear all your qualifications. You're very well-qualified people. I was interested in finding out if currently the coroner system is run by the Justice of the Peace in Montgomery County in Precinct 3, and also How would you be dealing with those responsibilities if they are there? Because I understand it's very stressful and takes a lot of time.
Mr. Zientek, I believe you lead off this time.
Actually, I'm very qualified as far as answering this. I spent 10 years in homicide, and that's one of the ways that I actually met all the JPs on many of the death scenes. Currently, we have a coroner system. We have it as a JP, other states refer to it as a coroner, and they are responsible for death inquest in the county. Actually, in Precinct 3, it is one that has the most death inquests because of the large population of hospitals that are here. And by statute, if you're in a hospital less than 24 hours, there has to be a death inquest. As far as being called out, the time that it takes, I'm used to that. After 10 years in homicide, being on call and responding to scenes, that's just a 24/7 that I was used to. But actually, one of the things that Judge Connolly had not been a part of is she handled just the precinct, while the other JPs had worked on an on-call system that allowed them to take time for a week to work the cases that came in, and any other time on the off-call weeks that they would be handling their court business. And I would plan on joining part of that system where I'd be on call for a week at a time, and then during the time that I'm not on call, I would not be having to be called away from court. Currently, by statute, we have to go to ME's office once it reaches 1 million population in the county. We are looking at that possibly 5-10 years down the road. I would look forward to being a part of helping create that system with my experience in death investigation, but it is a lot of money. It's something the Commissioner's Court would definitely have to consider before going forward with that. It is something that requires DNA, toxicology lab, not only just the coroner's office. So it is a great expense to the county to consider before moving forward with it.
Mr. Beasley?
The JP is the coroner for the precinct. That is a duty. I'm willing to do it. I'm qualified to do it. I've been on many death investigations. It's not anything new. I've had to deliver death notifications. It's not a pleasant thing, but it's part of the job. The county, Judge Connolly did 700 death inquests last year. So let's get to 1 million, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just get to 900,000 population. So we're going to wait so she does 2,000 death investigations and runs one of the busiest courts in the state? That's not reasonable. The county already has issues planning for things. So let's not wait till it's not even sustainable anymore to worry about it. We are far past the sleepy community where you don't need a medical examiner's office. The court suffers because of that. So that's my position on that. Thank you.
I agree this county would benefit from a coroner, but until then, we have the system we have. And as Mr. Beasley said, JP3 has went out to over 700 inquests this past year. As a prosecutor and as interning as an investigator with the DA's office here in Montgomery County, I've gone to countless search warrant cases, death scenes, assaults on children, you name it. I've gone out to those. And it's any time of the day. And so I've done that 24/7, 365 for almost 20 years. So being on call is nothing new to me. What I will tell you is I've worked with the JPs here when I was here before as an investigator. I've worked with JPs in Walker County and I've worked with JPs in Grimes County. And I believe in the system that the other JPs have here. I believe in sharing your time. That way you can dedicate that week to doing the death inquest and you can concentrate on your court. That's the big thing we have right here, is making sure your docket gets moved. And if you can concentrate on doing death inquests for a period of time, you can make your docket move. And so that's what's needed here, is to be able to share time with the other JPs to make your court work more efficiently. And that's what I plan to do, is team up with the other JPs here to make the court work more efficiently.
Thank you. Now it'd be a good time to go out and put your name in the bucket out there, because this is the last one in this bucket. And as last time, I saved the best to last. Mr. Crane,
Yes.
we didn't get to it last question, and I got called out for that. but
Okay, so I'm going to take it out on y'all then. Okay. We've said the word efficiency 4, 5, 6, 10 times now. It's kind of nice to talk about it, but I'd like to actually have a two-part question. One, what does ethics mean to you? And two, what exactly are you going to do to make it more efficient? This is where paying close attention to what a JP does will actually come in handy to answer my question, gentlemen.
I believe Mr. Beasley, you could lead off this time.
Sure, thank you. Ethics is doing the right thing no matter what, and that's how I feel about it. I don't have some legal definition to give you. It's just who you are and what you do, and are you principled. To say I'm going to make the court more efficient, or any one of us to say that, the court is efficient. It works well. Well, there are some things I'll do, but that's not a platform to run for office, is it? The court, it operates fine, just fine. So I'm not going to make some sweeping change and make the court all of a sudden totally different. That's not going to happen, no matter who no matter who's elected to this position. There are some things that I'm going to do different in terms of some electronic signatures and some other things, but these aren't platforms for somebody to run on. The court was built on a good foundation. You just need someone who's ready to take over for Judge Conley's retirement. Thank you.
And I'm the one who can take over tomorrow because I've worked in JP courts. I know how the trial system works, I know how the civil system works, and I know the laws and the rules of evidence. I can make the court work more efficiently. Why is that? I've worked with law enforcement, I've worked with defense attorneys, I've worked with other prosecutors or special prosecutors, and I've worked with judges in designing docket systems that work. If you can make cases run more efficiently through your court, you can make the court work better for the money that's spent in the court. And how do you do that? You specialize dockets. So you treat victim cases specially. And so those cases, they're more involved in the other cases. And so victim cases deal with criminal mischiefs, assault cases, threat cases, cases such as that. Those cases are more involved, so it allows the prosecutor's office and the defendants and their attorneys to work together to alleviate trial settings. If those cases can work out beforehand, you take those cases off the trial docket. Same thing with civil cases. If you can make those cases move, and a jury or a bench trial will tell people what those cases are worth. And if they know what they're going to get from a jury in Montgomery County and they know what they're going to get from the bench, those cases will work out and the dockets will move more smoothly. As far as ethics go, as a prosecutor, I've been sworn to seek justice. And I will put my ethics out there, and I'm going to say what I'm going to do and do what I'm going to say within the bounds of the law. That's what ethics calls for. I've investigated law enforcement officers. I've made sure that they've done what they're supposed to do. I've indicted cops before. And so I believe in making sure the law is followed. And I believe in making sure dockets run more smoothly and more efficiently to make sure the money is used how it's supposed to be used. And that's what I would do as a JP, is run the dockets more smoothly.
Mr. Beasley has a rebuttal, and then we will get...
Sorry. So I just wanted to bring a point of clarification. Not a single person up here has ever been a justice of the peace or done the job. I know we've heard that people say that they can do it on day one. Well, I promise you, I think each one of us signed up for this role because we think we can do it on day one. I'm not running and telling you in 6 months from after I'm elected I'll be ready to run the office. So I just wanted to bring that point of clarification up. Thank you.
Mr. Zientek.
As far as ethics, I mean, it's doing the right thing. It's not being influenced by outside forces that change who you are and what you're supposed to do. As far as efficiency of the court, you know, those have heard me before, pretty much a nerd by tech, and that's one of the ways that I look to make the court more efficient. The district courts, the county courts have all gone to electronic filings. Now, my understanding is that there's numerous different types of filings and such in the JP court that make it a little bit more difficult, but I would like to at least start the process and making it easier to have the electronic filing, which obviously makes the transmittal of those cases faster. And again, of course, you still have to focus on the docket, but as I said before, it is an efficient court. It is the 9th busiest court in this state. There are 16 courts in Harris County, and there are only 2 that are busier than the one here in the Woodlands. So the fact that they're moving 46,000 cases through that court and still functioning with the 700 deaths that they're doing, there's no one going to stand up here and say that's not an efficient court. But obviously bringing some different tools that have not been used before, I think could possibly help the court.
One more rebuttal.
1 minute rebuttal. Having worked in justice of the peace courts with other attorneys and other JPs, I don't need on-the-job training. I've said that from the beginning. I can start working the court tomorrow because I know how JP courts work. The reason I can tell you that is I'm endorsed by Ben Lamont, the former county judge. I'm endorsed by Betty Shiflett, the former county judge of Grimes County. I'm endorsed by Joe Imhoff. I'm endorsed by Steve Acord. I'm endorsed by Gene Stapleton. And I'm endorsed by Don Sal and all the elected constables over there and former constables, because I know how to work a court. And I've worked with the judges, and they know I know how to work a court, and I can work it more smoothly. And so I don't need on-the-job training. I can do it starting tomorrow.
Next question will be Sherry Johnston.
My question, all 3 of y'all. Texas, as we asked the other judge, would you perform a same-sex marriage? The last I heard was that each individual in America has the right to marry, but we do have laws and boundaries as to what we can marry and who we can marry. So I'd like to know if you would perform a same-sex marriage. Thank you.
Mr. Yeates, you get the lead off on this one.
I plan on not doing any marriages because I believe the court needs time to do dockets. There are cases there that have languished for a year. When you file a case, it takes several months to be heard the first time, and then the second time could take up to a year. That's not right. So instead of taking 30 minutes to 45 minutes every other hour to do a wedding, I would dedicate my time to the docket to make sure your cases are moved, make sure the criminal cases are moved, the civil cases are moved. I wouldn't perform weddings. I would work the docket.
Mr. Zientek?
So as far as would I do weddings, yes, obviously that is a function of the court and a service that's provided by this county to the citizens of the community. So I certainly would not take that away. As far as your question of same-sex marriage, when I am elected, you stand up there and swear to uphold the laws of this state. And that law has already gone up to the Supreme Court, and a decision has been made that there is a law that we will perform civil unions, and that has been deemed that our clerks issue those license, and that we will perform those actions.
Mr. Beasley?
No, I will not perform wedding or marriage ceremony services.
John Ballman?
My name is John Bauman. I want to thank you all for running. Not that many people will throw their hat in the ring for any race, and you guys are all very well qualified, and I thank you for stepping forward. I just have a question about efficiency, and it relates to death cases. I sense on the part of some of you that there's some criticism of Judge Connolly's not participating in this weekly program where you're changing who's doing the death cases. She's doing more than twice the number of cases that the other courts are doing. So she has a docket that is really huge compared to the other courts. And she's doing it, and I think part of it's probably because of the efficiency of scale, but she's doing it at about half the cost per case that the other courts are doing it. So this is definitely a very efficient court.
John,
But
if you could-
the question is, how are you going to continue doing that, achieving that level of efficiency, if you start going out and adding on things like participating one week every 5 weeks, it would be, I guess, in handling the death cases for the county? Thank you.
Mr. Zientek, I believe it's your turn.
So actually, it does help to make it efficient by being on all-call rotation, because right now as it is, and I understand from Judge Connolly, her position was that in Precinct 3, she wanted to handle Precinct 3, so those are the scenes she responded to. That was her decision. By doing so, however, is while court's going on, if there's a suspicious death, a homicide, a suicide, anything that she needs to respond to, she must leave the bench. She has to go to that scene. By being on an on-call schedule, that 4 weeks, if all of the JPs were part of it, or if only 4 of them were part of it, there's 3 weeks out of the month that you are solidly in that court, not being called away for any suspicious death or any other reason that you can sit and move the docket. And that's one reason why I feel that it would make it more efficient.
Beasley?
Judge Connolly, I believe last week, called Judge Madston out of Magnolia because she was taking care of a court docket. Her practice has not been to be on call. She has her reasons for that. I do believe a medical examiner's office will cure a lot of these questions. Right now, we have a death investigator that the county has funded, which from what I hear from the other justices of the peace, they don't really utilize this person because they're too busy doing clerical clerk work. So if we need to make steps to get towards an ME's office and get death investigators that can assist the justice of the peace to do their death inquests, and that will help with keep the efficiency of the court, especially Judge Connolly's court.
And I mirror what Mr. Zientek said as far as sharing the workload with the other JPs. If you can dedicate 4 weeks straight to your court, you can move more cases and you can move them more efficiently. Like I said earlier, as far as doing weddings, I'm not going to do weddings, so I can dedicate more time to the court to make it more efficient. As far as inquests go, we do need a courter. We're not going to get one anytime soon. So being able to share the caseload with the other JPs makes sense because you can dedicate time. As a prosecutor in Grimes County, I'm one of the people, myself and the former DA, we developed the blood draw search warrant system over there. And so, unlike Montgomery County, we've been zero tolerance for 15 years over there. One of the issues we had was the law enforcement kept picking on the same JP because they knew he would answer. He was former law enforcement. They knew he would answer and he'd show up. So he ends up getting run ragged. So I worked with the JPs. I worked with all the JPs that are in the precincts to come up on a cyclical rate so you can have time off to concentrate on your court dockets or spend time with your family. And so just like I did over there, I would agree with doing it here with the other JPs because it gives you time. You know when you're going to be on call and you know when you can work your dockets. And so that's how efficiency works, combining those two functions.
Thank you. Bucket's empty. Does anyone else have a question?
Hi, my name is Kathy Ross. On occasion, I have to come to the court with juveniles from my treatment center, and it's mostly for assaults and for truancy. And I know there's a huge truancy problem in Montgomery County, and that's what your court's going to be full with. What would you do when kids come there? Because now they're blowing kisses at different people in the courtroom. There's lack of respect. Are you going to put any teeth into any of your cases when they come to you?
Losing track. I believe, Mr. Beasley, you get to start this time.
That's a great question. There needs to be decorum in the court. I don't know. I've never seen the juveniles blowing kisses in the courtroom. That's the first I've heard of it. If it happens, it wouldn't happen if I were there. You need to have respect for the court. So I hope that answers your question.
Mr. Yeates?
JP court is the gateway court to the other courts. And so I've done teen court in Navasota, I don't know how many times, acting as a judge. So I've dealt on that level with the juveniles. I also handle the truancy cases in Grimes County. Legally, the county attorney in Grimes County is supposed to handle the truancy cases and the juvenile cases in JP court. However, I'm the one who does it with the DA's office. Just by default, I've always done them. And so I absolutely believe there should be teeth in a court. If you can rehabilitate children and get them on the right path, you don't deal with them in county and district court later on. And I see that as a product in working in small towns and small communities, that if you do not steer them the correct way when they're younger, you will deal with them later. And so absolutely, you need to have some teeth in court. You need to make sure decorum's held up. You need to make sure children are treated with respect, but they need to know they need to treat the court with respect as well, and also the officers of the court and the people working in the court to help them get on the right path. And so absolutely there needs to be teeth in court, and you need to make sure kids know that so you steer them in the right paths.
Mr. Zientek?
No, I echo what the others have said. Certainly, there has to be respect in the court. But it also brings up a great point as far as how many cases are coming to the court. In many issues in this county that we deal with juvenile, one of our biggest goals in that court is to keep them on track. Obviously, them staying in school, them graduating from high school puts them on the right track. We have to do what we can, whether it is through education programs, through treatment programs, through whatever we can do to make them realize that they need to be on that track. We don't want to lose a kid that has no future because we didn't guide them in some way. And whether that's by putting teeth in it, by putting fines on, by putting in some type of treatment, but our goal, the end goal of all of it, is to save that kid so that they can be a productive citizen in society and move on with their life and help this community.
I think you ran out of water. Do you need more?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Anybody need?
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Mr. Wertz?
John Wirtz. Eric stole my question from before, from the Golden Hammer. Gentlemen, thank you all for running. The Constitution of the United States, implemented 1789, ratified. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Obergefell is not enumerated in the Constitution. Mr. Zientek, I'd like a little bit more clarification on how you can justify that Obergefell is the law of the land according to the Supreme Court, yet Texas law says that marriage is strictly between a man and a woman, and I'd like the other two gentlemen to weigh in on that. Thank you.
Okay. So, I like the way that you worded your question, because actually you asked about marriage. And what the law has decided is that we must do civil unions. We have to sign off on that document, and that's law. Now, back to marriage. I do believe as a Christian that marriage is between a man and a woman. And so I sort of answer that with another question, and that is, what authority do you believe that me sitting on the bench gives me higher authority than God? Basically, God has already decided what a man and woman is a marriage. What I am doing is conducting a ceremony as required by law to sign a document. If I conduct that ceremony and I sign that document, at no point am I now taking above what God has said is right, wrong, or indifferent. I have followed the law as I've been sworn to do.
Mr. Beasley?
There's nothing that compels someone, a justice of the peace, to perform any marriage ceremony. My preference is to not do that. So that's all I have to say about the topic.
Mr. Yeates?
I also believe marriage is between a man and a woman. That's the way I was raised. That's what I believe. As a Christian, that's what I believe. As far as marriage between a man and woman and the justice of the peace performing those duties, the law has come down and said that they are to perform these duties. It may not be marriage, but it's a civil union. So we're supposed to sign off on these things because we're required to do it by law. It's not the judge's position to make law or create law. We follow what the legislature have done. And so whether we like it or not, the same thing as a prosecutor. I have to follow the law. If I don't like a certain crime, I still have to enforce that crime. I still have to prosecute it. And so the law is what the law is, and it's up to the legislature, the people y'all vote in the office, to change it. And so I have to follow the law. But in this case, I have chosen that I'm not going to perform weddings because I want to concentrate on the court docket.
Thank you. Another question from the audience? You first. I got time for both of you. I have to get hers or I'll get can't go home.
I'll take you.
Well, gentlemen, again, we are so fortunate in Montgomery County that we have such wonderful candidates to select from. I mean, so thank you very much for running. Since you will be a JP judge, you will have to follow the Constitution. And my question to you relates to constitutional law. Do you believe the Constitution is a living document or not?
Mr. Yeates, I believe you get to lead off on this one.
No, I do not. I believe the Constitution, what the Constitution does is it delineates the rights that were given to us by our Creator, by God. That's what the Constitution does. And I believe we should go back to what the Constitution says. And following back on what Mr. Wirtz said earlier, the legislation itself is the one that drafts that and changes that law. And so I believe the Constitution is not a living document, but the people who elect people in the office end up changing it.
I do family law, and I'm concerned that I'm not hearing from the candidates that Texas law says that a marriage is between a man and a woman.
I agree with you.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Zientek?
So, no, it is not a living document. It is our foundation that laws are created on and then balanced against whether it meets the Constitution as it was written.
It is not a living document. I know it says what it says and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. I know political winds try to change what the Constitution is, but that's what's so great about the Constitution, is that it says what it says and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. Thank you.
Mrs. Gabolis?
What do you honorable gentlemen think about the chaplaincy program? Do you know what I'm talking about? Montgomery County, Magnolia, Judge Mack has a program where when someone dies, he has all sorts of pastors who have volunteered to go out and help with the deaths because people get so distraught. And I just wondered, I don't know if it's spreading or not. I don't know how many JPs have it. And what do you think of it?
I'm unfamiliar with the system, so I can't answer on that.
Zientek?
I am familiar, and actually am working many death scenes with the JP. It's a time that I've given many death notifications. And after my purpose was there as an investigator, we then leave the family. And obviously, there are many times that family is left alone. It is other family support that's not available. And so having a ministry, which Judge Mack worked very hard to put together, of all faiths, to be able to respond to a citizen in our county, to be there for support, to help them, along with understanding the process. When we have a death investigation that's a suspicious death or a homicide, we're going to have to order an inquest, meaning we're going to have to order autopsy, and there are certain religions that frown upon that, and having someone there to understand and be able to explain the process to them is comforting to them, and is certainly a great system that I would encourage.
Beasley?
Yeah, I know about the program. When you're in those situations, sometimes family members request for a pastor. A lot of times it's their pastor. But if there's a certain circumstance where they would just like a pastor there, I think it would be very beneficial to have phone numbers to call to get somebody there. But the justice of the peace, as it's situated right now, is the person that shows up and comforts the family and reassures them that what needs to be done is going to be done and answers the questions for them. So, thank you.
Got time for about one more question. Gentleman back here. Just state your name.
Adrian Kaiser, and this one's mostly for Mr. Beasley. Mr. Yeates has explained why he won't do marriages. Mr. Zientek said he was, but what is your reason for not performing marriage ceremonies? And then are all you qualified to perform marriages by the state standards is what I'm trying to get at. But start with Mr. Beasley.
I think I can pretty much answer this for the group of us. If we're elected, we are qualified to marry people.
Okay.
I'm not going to marry one because it's not something I have to do as a duty, but death inquests and working the docket and hearing cases is something I have to do. So that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
Does the gentleman care to add comment? No? One more?
Why does everyone keep laughing when I come up? I think y'all definitely said the right things earlier, that the youth is definitely needed to be a really huge focus. I know recently I attended Montgomery County's youth services, and what they're trying to do for the children ages 10 to 18 is just, it's mind-blowing what they're trying to do for the community. Is that something that you as JPs, if y'all are elected, would like to get behind wholeheartedly and help design a program that not only helps them cope with current issues in society, but yet make a program that youth services could in fact implement to keep them from becoming a problem later in life?
Mr. Zientek, if you would start, please.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I'd be very interested. I'm already involved in many aspects of children's programs in the county. More on the aspect of things that I've done in death investigation and otherwise. But currently, I'm on the Montgomery County Fatality Review Board for Children. I am on the Human Trafficking Coalition, and I also am involved in the process of Safe Harbor, which is our Crimes Against Children Child Advocacy Center, and the development of their program and the practices and standards and the issues and things that we provide there. So I'm already involved in all three of those. I have been part of the public service awareness, part of the Child Fatality Review Board that may not be aware of it, is where prosecutors, nurses, CPS, and death investigators sit and go over every single child death within this county. And then we look at issues that cause those. And one of the biggest issues that we found was co-sleeping, which we then developed a public service awareness program to make parents aware. At the pediatrician's office, we knew that at the time that the baby was born is not the time. They're overloaded with so much information, so we moved it more towards vaccination. But about 80% of the child deaths were because of parents sleeping with the child. So as far as being involved in youth programs and developing our youth, it is a main focus of my career, and I certainly would be involved in anything I could with them. Thank you.
So the JP court sees a lot of youth in the community, and it's generally because they made a bad decision. And once you get into the courtroom and you have a judge that listens to what's going on with the kids in our community, you can start to make an impact. That's what Judge Connolly has done for so long, and that's how a lot of people know her. In regards to helping the youth, that's very important. I think I would like to start an initiative with the texting while driving and promote that through the high schools, along with the suicide prevention, because that seems to, especially in South Montgomery County, has been an issue. So, thank you.
Absolutely, I'd want to develop a program with the juveniles and work with that program. I've worked with teen court for more than a decade. We've just implemented a Kids in Court program where we assist children who are victims of crimes, sexually violent crimes and just violent crimes, through our court system. Our DA's office is doing that. And so I oversee aspects of that. I also work with the teen court. I love working with kids. And so I would most definitely want to work in developing programs to help keep kids out of trouble and help them develop coping mechanisms and help them develop initiatives and help them develop their own lives and their intent on what they want to do with them. If you can keep kids out of trouble, you can keep them out of court. And you don't want kids in court, and you definitely don't want them getting into more serious offenses. So yes, most definitely, I've been doing it for more than a decade, working with kids, and I'd want to continue doing that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now have their closing statements, 2 minutes apiece, and we'll go reverse order of what we started. So Mr. Yeates, you will start.
Thank y'all for having us out here. I look forward to talking with you people. I look forward to getting together and talking with anybody I can, answering any questions. Like I said, I'm the only attorney running for this office in the primary. I'm the only one who is versed in both civil and criminal law in this case, and evidentiary law. I'm the only one that can start running this docket tomorrow. I don't need on-the-job training. I've worked with juveniles. I've worked with JPs. I've worked with county judges. I've worked with district judges. I've worked civil aspects of cases dealing with asset forfeiture and bond forfeiture. I've worked criminal cases. And so I know how to work a docket. I've worked with judges in planning their dockets. I've worked with all levels of courts in planning their dockets. I can make the court run more efficiently because I know how to work a docket. I also can run the docket. I can run the court more efficiently dealing with finances. I would look and see what the best ways are to make sure every penny that goes into that court is put where it's supposed to go in the best way it can to save taxpayer money. I've been doing that in my own house, and I've been teaching my kids that and people in the community at my church and elsewhere for 4 years doing that. So put me in office and I'll make the court work better. I'll be there more, and I will do the best job that can be done in that court. And I can do it starting tomorrow. My name is Ronnie Yeates. I'd love your vote.
Beasley?
Thank you guys for coming tonight. This is an important position. It means a lot to us as candidates to know that the community cares about it. I've met a lot of the people in this room. I met them at their door. Some people ask me why I don't have a website. It's because I talk to them about what I'm going to do at their doorstep. That's the only way I know how to do it. You need to work if you want to get elected. I never planned to run a campaign to where I just send out mailers to you. I want to talk to you, and that's what I've done. I appreciate your time. I will do you a good job if I'm elected. I'll make you proud. My name is Matt Beasley, and my motto is the choice is easy, vote for Beasley. Thank you.
So, wrapping things up, you have some great guys up here. You have to decide who the most qualified candidate is. I believe I'm that qualified candidate because I have all the areas of that court covered. I currently am over the civil division at the consul's office. I have been a police officer for 26 years, handling juvenile cases, handling adult cases, and meeting magistrates for magistrates warning, handling juveniles in all aspects of criminal law. All the stats that y'all currently see in the county, most of them are from reports that I wrote to intersect with the Spillman system to show you the crime stats. I look at using the same thing attached to Tyler so that we can show you the statistics of what the courts do. So there's transparency of what you're paying for and show how busy that court is and what's running there. As far as me working now, I've already told you many of the things that I've been involved in, and as Matt Beasley said, trying to get texting and that awareness. We did that last year. I created a video for Constable Gable's office that was viewed over 250,000 times on the new text law that had come out. As far as serving you, I'm doing that right now. Besides working in the property room and evidence room, most people saw the softball coach from last week and the crimes against children that we're getting people off the street. This morning, I was at a search warrant in Montgomery County up near Honey, Egypt, in which we put a child predator in jail that was trading child porn. That was this morning. So I'm currently out there working to protect our kids and keep them safe. It's something I'll continue to do in the court with all the other aspects and knowledge that I have. So I appreciate your vote, and mine's very simple. All you have to do is remember the letter Z, because I'm the only one on the ballot. Just look for Z. You don't have to know the race. Thank you.
We want to thank our candidates. We obviously have 3 highly qualified candidates. I want to thank all of you for turning out. And we also need to thank the City of Shenandoah for making this facility available. help to say thank you to the city of Shenandoah is make sure we don't leave anything in here, look around. Yeah, love to cover something if you would pick them up, please.